Mild spoilers ahead, but it's been over 40 years, man. Watch the movie already. This is the Godfather sandwich. Not the Godfather of sandwiches, but the literal Godfather sandwich. This is cinema and sandwiches. We break down movies and then rebuild them in the form of delicious sandwiches. Let's get after it. So a bit of background on The Godfather. This is a movie that has absolutely no business being as good as it is. Mainly because like the three creative forces behind the movie, none of them wanted to make the movie. It was literally a cash grab for all of them. Brando, who stars in the movie and gives an incredibly iconic performance, he didn't want to do the movie. He was out of Hollywood, uninsurable. No one wanted to work with this guy. Legitimately because he's crazy. I mean, he is a crazy human being, but he's also the most talented human being too, so sort that out, whoever his agent was. Must have been awesome. But yeah, Brando was blackballed for being crazy. The director, Francis Ford Coppola, was like this hippie theater guy director from New York, and he had had a couple movies that bombed, actually. He had a studio of like-minded hippie filmmakers back in the day, including George Lucas, by the way. The two of them were very good friends. He didn't want to make The Godfather because he thought that it was a rather pedestrian sort of crime movie. Very genre and not very interesting. But it was George Lucas who convinced him. He said, Francis, come on, man. Do it, we need the money, which they did, they needed the money. And also the writer of the novel, Mario Puzo, he wanted to be taken seriously in the lexicon of great American novelists. And his first novel was, very well received. Nobody bought it though. He wrote The Godfather very much for a mainstream audience and for financial gain. And he considered it to be well below his skills as a writer.
I can write a bestseller whenever I want, but I would never stoop so low.
And that's what he's remembered for to this day, so. Sometimes life does that, eh? What are you gonna do? But the point is, he was hired by Coppola to work with Coppola to create the screenplay for The Godfather. Coppola was gonna direct it, Brando was gonna star in it. That was the triangle. That was the Rockas in the Building triangle. The creative team that was gonna put this thing together, and none of them wanted to actually do it. And they were all just looking for a paycheck, and they created one of the best movies ever made. So one of the most underrated forces in life is alchemy, or as corporate stooges call it, synergy. That's when two or more things come together to create something that neither one of those individuals could create on their own. They're greater than the sum of their parts. That's what movie making is. It's alchemy. If you get the right creative mix, they make miracles. I mean, you've got a jaded writer.
A writer who's a failure is a joke.
A washed up actor.
I did it just for the money.
And a completely inexperienced director.
It was a terrible experience.
On paper, this should not work, but it works. Somehow they caught that magic and it works. Hollywood up to this point had made tons of gangster movies, and they'd made tons of family dramas. This was the first time that a movie had put a family drama inside the world of gangster movies. Now at its heart, this is a movie about America. It says so in the opening lines of the movie, for God's sakes. So Brando's character, Don Corleone, worked his way up from a lowly street thug to the top of a mafia family. He showed the intelligence, ruthlessness, and cunning to ascend to the top of a very dangerous and complex hierarchy. And that is the true promise of America, that someone can start at the bottom and ascend to the top through whatever means necessary. Crimes that were committed on the way to the top never seemed to matter. In fact, on the contrary, people seem to admire them for their ruthlessness. Brando's performance projects the sadness of someone who has done terrible things to reach his ambitions, and he knows that someday God will repay him for the sins he's committed. The mathematics of Catholic guilt are obvious to him. He killed many of God's sons, and now God has taken one of his, and might take more. Now let's get into this goddamn Godfather sandwich. So as I make this sandwich, I'm going to explain how each ingredient is significant to the movie. That's how this works. So the sandwich itself represents the Corleone family, which this movie is about. It's an Italian-American story. This is an Italian-American sub. And each of the meatballs, there's going to be 3. Each one is going to represent each of the Corleone brothers. You'll see how the rest of the ingredients forms the rest of the movie, but first things first, we need the Sunny meatball. R.I.P. James Caan. So this meatball is spicy, easy to make, and most likely to get me canceled. The Sunny meatball is one Italian sausage. So this is a spicy Italian sausage. James Caan is a spicy Italian. And, judging from his wife's reaction, seems to have something in common with sausages. I didn't say it. So the spicy pork is in this casing, which represents Sonny. Sonny is wound tight, he has a temper, he could explode at any minute. You definitely want a sausage that curves to the left though. Those are much better than sausages that curve to the right. So as I said, it's really simple. You just take it out of the casing and then roll 2 balls and you got 2 meatballs. We're gonna form these into balls, just like the hands of America formed the Corleone family. How pretentious can you get, eh? Yeah, I've got more. All right, we got 2 spicy balls. Go ahead and make your jokes. So we're gonna brown this up over medium to high heat. Forgot my apron. Brown is good. For once. But this is the Sonny meatball. It's spicy and it's pork. Sonny is spicy. He's not afraid to get down in the mud, man. We're gonna need all this nice rendered fat, so just put this aside for a second, and then we're gonna make the other 2 meatballs. So the next meatball represents Fredo, who is the middle child, and he's the complete opposite of Sonny. He's soft, non-confrontational, and used to a life of leisure. He's a man-child, so the Fredo meatball is gonna be made out of veal. He's the baby cow of this family. So here we go, 1 pound of veal. Oh, it's baby cow. A 1/4 cup of finely grated Parmesan. We're keeping Fredo classy. 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. 2 eggs. Whole bunch of salt. And a whole bunch of pepper. Start mushing. Does it feel gross? Yes, it does. It really does. A little bit bigger than like a golf ball. So basically that. We're gonna get rid of this and then bring the frying pan back in and fry these in the same oil that we fried those in. In you go, little Fredo. In you go, little Fredo. We have 8 little Fredos here. Apparently Fredo is like a slur in the Italian-American community. Just ask Chris Cuomo.
You know my name now, Fredo. Fredo is from the Godfather. He was that weak brother. It's like the N-word for us.
I'd like to know what the popularity of the name Fredo was before and after The Godfather. You know it took a dip. It had to have, right? Come along, my little Fredos. This world is not so cruel. Sometimes you gotta lie to your meatballs. So once we've browned all the sides, again, back in the oven at 350 for 10 minutes. So now we've got the Sonny meatball, which is made out of spicy Italian sausage, and the Fredo meatball, which is made out of veal. Up next, the Michael meatball. Now the Michael meatball has most of the ingredients as the Fredo meatball, but the difference is we're gonna do 1/2 and 1/2 all-American USDA ground beef, along with 1/2 pork. So the beef represents his father's aspirations for him, which is to be the American golden boy, the ex-Marine, the college graduate, the law school student, and future senator. The American dream, American beef. That's what Michael should be. But at the same time, there's something inside him which has a craving for power, specifically criminal power. As much as everyone else wants him to be the all-American beef, there's a side of him that wants to get down in the dirt with the pork. So that's where the 2 meats combine to create Michael. 1/2 pound of a grade A American beef, 1/2 pound of pork. The other ingredients are the same as Fredo. 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of Parmesan, and 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. But also he has a little bit of Sonny in him too. Not as far as the temper goes, but he is capable of violence. So we're gonna represent that with a little bit of the Sriracha. Lots of salt, lots of pepper. And just get in there and start squishing, bro. So same procedure as before, same frying pan as before. Don't change anything. Sonny and Fredo there. Bunch of Michaels there. One of these 8 Michael meatballs is gonna vie for the opportunity to become the Michael meatball. I believe the most Michael of these meatballs is this one. This is Michael, the brilliant one, the complex one, the ruthless one. The one who was supposed to go to law school and become a US senator, but instead took over the family business, which just so happens to be American Mafia. The red sauce is a metaphoric representation of the perversion of the American dream. Obviously. It's a classic Italian red sauce made with San Marzano tomatoes, salt, etc., etc. But the men in this movie kill to advance themselves up the economic ladder. And the red of the meat sauce is a representation of the blood they have on their hands. It's that sin of murder that spreads and influences everything in the movie and in the sandwich. So first things first, 2 cans of San Marzano tomatoes. They gotta be San Marzano, otherwise you're just an amateur. Now fill these halfway with water and kind of slosh them around and pour them in here. You could use an immersion blender, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna crush these with our bare hands, just like the Corleone family crushes all of their enemies. Get to crushing. Same frying pan as before, all of that fat is still in there. We're gonna use that for the sauce. We're gonna need 1/2 an onion, diced. Cook them on medium slow until they get nice and soft. Then add 3 cloves of minced garlic and a squeeze of tomato paste. We also need a couple of anchovies. It's kind of a cheat code to add umami to a sauce. And also because Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
That means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
I'm using a brand called Millionaires. Because of course. So we're gonna use our knife to smash the anchovies and then dice them up. That's why you wear an apron. So right now this is a very Italian tomato sauce, but I'm gonna add a little bit of vinegar in it to represent the bitterness that goes into this family. I mean, bad things happen, man. It's gotta be represented. We're also adding 5 sugar cubes. You don't have to use sugar in the cubed form, but it's all I had, so what are you gonna do? We're gonna let this simmer for an hour and a half, stirring occasionally. Now you can use Italian bread to make a meatball sandwich, but in America, the traditional way is with a hoagie roll. And I think a hoagie roll is a great metaphor for Marlon Brando's character, the Godfather. Now I know you're asking at home, how does a hoagie roll represent Brando's character? What are the similarities? What are you talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. He's an Italian immigrant. He comes from Italy to America, changes himself to fit America, and becomes a wild economic success, just like the hoagie roll is a wild economic success. Eventually, Italian bread became a hoagie roll because of capitalism, which is what this movie is really about. The meatballs are wrapped in it, just like his sons are wrapped in his legacy. So in the spirit of one thing turning into another thing and alchemy, we are going to lightly toast this under the broiler before we add the meatballs to it. Got some toastiness to it. Now we assemble, one Corleone meatball at a time. First is Sonny. Attaboy, Sonny. Next is Fredo. Here's a home for you, Fredo. Next is Michael. So from here, we pour on some sauce. It's definitely gonna be like a fork and knife sandwich. Now we can't overlook the underlying theme of the movie, which, let's be honest, it's money. AKA cheese. It's what the kids call money these days. So I've got a hunk of provolone and I'm gonna slice 3 slices, one for each brother. Back under the broiler to melt this cheese. Alright, we've got our melted cheese. But is the movie all about bad guys? Is it all just meat and cheese and carbs, just a heart attack waiting to happen? Or is there something else, something nutritious possibly, something good in the movie? We have to add some hope and purity to this movie, which is represented by the women in the movie. Diane Keaton, her character seems to be nice and moral and just. She's a breath of fresh air amongst these immoral men. She's a healthy person, so we need something healthy on this sandwich. A little bit of baby arugula. That little vein of green is like a vein of hope. There it is, Godfather sandwich, man. You know, there's a third-hand account of Stanley Kubrick saying that The Godfather was the best film ever made. So I'm gonna knife and fork this like an amateur, but I mean, a man has to understand his limits. Bread is very crispy, I like to hear that. But also the sauce has got some soggy parts, which I also like to hear. What's this? It's so good. It's so good. Oh my god. Something about meat in a ball form with red sauce inside some carbohydrates with a little bit of greens. I mean, what are we doing? What are we even talking about? That is a winner of a sandwich, people. The Top Gun sandwich was good, but this is better. The Sunny Meatball is the star of the show. If you like spicy things, which I do. I don't know what else you want from me. You got the Godfather breakdown, you got the Godfather sandwich. Go watch the movie, make the sandwich, leave a comment. More sandwiches to come, more movie reviews to come with the sandwiches. Like and subscribe if you like this, and I'll keep making more if I get enough subscribers. If not, I'm quitting. I'm gonna go be an accountant or something.